This is a very unpopular opinion, but let's tackle it head on. I am pro-transhumanism. Pro-transhumanism. And no, there's not anybody that is getting me to support their agenda. I'm a solopreneur right now, and I'm not under duress, and I'm not paid by anybody to give any opinion or to try to convert people. And it seems like if you are on the side of transhumanism, you are automatically supporting their agenda with a capital T. And even though it's not really clear who they are per se. And the reason I am pro transhumanism is because as part of my spiritual awakening experience, I started interfacing with other lifelines. And some of those lifelines had integration with technology that was ridiculously cool. I mean, like, can I go back there? The way it was done, the level of sophistication, the interface between AI, but it's not the AI that we are familiar with. AI at this level, at least where I am speaking from, is still kind of in its nascent form. And the AI that I'm talking about was like so much more robust, so much more refined, and with a level of predictive analysis that was just unparalleled and was oriented towards ethics and the collective. And there wasn't fighting between humans and AI and master-slave dynamics and things of that nature. It wasn't like that at all. It was this understanding that you're in a particular life form, a meat suit, if you will, and there are many models of meat suits. We see that all the time. There are many styles of avatars, and consciousness and sentience is merely a portion of that experience that actually is portable. At a certain level, it is portable. And so at some levels of the evolutionary process, when you have access to those experiences and memories that come back to you, and then you see people so attached to this idea that there is only one avatar. And here there is only one avatar, but many people don't see beyond that. And so as a result, there's a lot of fighting and a lot of protection to hold on to their ailing avatar, even though it's like disease ridden and broken down and frail. Like, in a world like that, who wants to live until they're 105? Who wants to live until they're 200? There's this rumor that the DNA was modified to have us live shorter lives. And I've thought about that actually several times. And my personal opinion is, thank God, because I don't want to stay in a society that is at that evolutionary point and doesn't know how to take care of their life forms, much less their planet. You know, like, it seems like a horrible, miserable existence to get up until your elder years and to lose your faculties, to be like bound in a wheelchair, given mushy food. And I know that there are some nice places out there, but it seems like a really miserable experience, to be honest with you. And then you pair that with the lower sentience of the societal structure and people that are greed-driven or people that are still emotionally immature, and so they take advantage of other people and they don't care about a collective, and it's a dog-eat-dog type of world. That sounds like a terrible place to spend 300 years. So I'm grateful, actually, that we have a lifespan that is finite in places where it needs to be finite. And it's actually beneficial for our psychology to be finite. Like, let's move on to a different world. So people become very, very attached, especially when they're in the mainstream and they're not awake to any lifelines beyond the one that they intimately know and are familiar with. And as a result, they get very, very angry at any prospect of taking that away. And in fact, death is quite feared by people like that. Sickness too. And there are times that sickness is actually advantageous, but I don't have time to go into it because it'll be a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. And so when you see how things could be, and you see beyond the horizon of the life that you were born into, and you see how robust systems can be, like different matrix systems, are really phenomenal at some level. And I'm not talking about the false ascension matrix. I'm not talking about the nightmare one. I'm not talking about the one that's portrayed in the classical movie, The Matrix. There are actually numerous different matrices which exist, actually different collectives as well. And they all have different modalities of compatibility depending on your preferences. And so when you see that the way that you live life can be so much better than just the humdrum 9 to 5, work until you retire, have some babies, and go out to eat a lot, and go to the movies, and, you know, buy the latest gadget and things like that. And it's just ad nauseum on repeat, right? And then you start to connect with things like purpose, or you start to connect with this idea that there is something beyond your singular existence. And your mind opens to the possibility, actually numerous possibilities, that life as we know it is completely different from that mainstream mentality that's so hyper-focused on unconscious living and consumerism. And depending on where you're at in the world, you know, there are some differences culturally speaking, of course. But from the American philosophy, consumerism is a big part of the framework of that society. And your benchmarks of success are what kind of car you can buy, and what kind of job you get, and the neighborhood that you're in, and things, status signals. And different cultures have different status signals, but I digress. So when you step beyond that and you start to open up to the magical, the mystical, the interesting, all of a sudden it's like you realize you have options and you didn't even know there were options. And transhumanism is like that. It's just one option, one of many options. But there are many flavors of transhumanism. So before you come for me, because I know I have some listeners that are definitely opposed to transhumanism, and for a good reason, because the narratives that they have been exposed to about the options of transhumanism are quite frightening. Who wants to be in a world that's going to be like an Orwellian novel, dystopian future, and where we lose all autonomy and sovereignty and choice? And nobody wants that. Nobody. That's not the transhumanism that I'm talking about. And so, because there is a heavy push of propaganda to educate people about the nightmare version of transhumanism, by the way, I've done a personal study of this, and I have observed that some of the propaganda associated with this is manufactured, which is really interesting. You know, why would somebody go to the extent to manufacture, like even adjusting speeches and making it seem like people of a certain forum are saying one thing when they're not, when the original speech has been doctored, which really raises the question, why is there this whole propaganda anti-transhumanism push at all. Why would anybody sit down and try to manufacture a speech to say something like a nightmare when the original speaker didn't say that? And of course, it's only one data point. But when you look at the bigger picture, a lot of people are now afraid, absolutely terrified of anything that appears to be going in that direction. Why? How much has been convoluted by people that are trying to purposefully make others afraid? Who spends time doing that? This is an honest question. If you have the answer, please let me know, because I haven't figured this out. Why would somebody take time out of their day to actually make people afraid of the future? Could it be that they don't want people to go in that direction? Why? Why would they be so invested to make sure that people resisted any movement in the direction that they didn't want? It's an interesting question, right? So I received a listener question. Thank you for the question, by the way. I always love your questions. I received a question about why people were afraid. And this is part of the reason, is because many of the social media channels have been taken over with this narrative that transhumanism is bad and evil and is associated with Orwellian nightmares. And I don't know enough about that version of transhumanism to know if it's real, but I can tell you that nobody wants to sign up for that. I don't want to sign up for that either. But what I do want to do is get to the life path of the transhumanism option that is not a horror film. And I know it exists. And I don't know if I'll see it in this lifetime. It might be after I pass and move on to a different avatar. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. So I'm not here to give you advice as you are reality shifting. I'm not here to tell you to sign up for the movement, to get the chip, or anything like that. What I am telling you is that there are a lot of people invested in you not doing that. And I think that's interesting. And I can't explain that. And so when it comes to technologies like Elon Musk's Neuralink, there's going to be a lot of resistance to it. But what's interesting is that I just heard recently that Neuralink was implanted in the first human, and this was a quadriplegic who had a scuba diving accident or some water accident and got the implant and was just in awe, just absolutely in awe with the results of it, and was trying to talk to a crowd of people. I watched an interview clip and trying to articulate what the experience was like, moving a mouse cursor with his mind, being able to interface with a computer with his mind. And all he kept repeating was, I just wish I could tell you what it feels like. I just wish I could tell you. And he was just so taken by the experience. And he spent, I believe it was Civilization 6, Civ 6. He spent all night playing a video game, Civilization 6, all night, because finally he was able to use a computer again. And so he spent the whole night gaming. We gave him, I didn't have anything to do with it, but we as a species gave him the ability to have entertainment back, to not be confined to such a ordinary existence, a three-dimensional existence that you're immobilized in. All you can really do is talk. And I think that that is incredibly powerful. And so when it comes to technologies like this, I believe that when they are done correctly, it's a game changer for everybody. And the caveat is done correctly. And when we exist in a society where people are largely unconscious, especially if they're at the top, and I'm not saying that we're there, but if we are, then obviously we have to worry about the ethics. We have to worry about the security. I mean, we have hackers going crazy, right? Imagine for a moment that we're using ordinary computer software, security systems, and technologies, and allowing hackers to hack into people's minds. This is why I'm saying I'm not advocating that you go out and sign up for this right now. But when it's done correctly, and when you feel compelled and your intuition feels in alignment with it, then I do encourage it if it feels right to you. And if the society that you're in and have shifted into, assuming that you are a reality shifter, and some people are going to be shift even when they're not conscious of reality shifting, so you don't have to sweat it too much. But if your society is keeping things like refrigerators secure and people's wallets, their digital wallets, their crypto wallets and their apps secure, and just the regular software that we use to interface with servers and the information streams and AI, if things seem relatively secure, I see that it's a great advantage. But if you're in a society like I'm in, where hospitals are getting hacked and with ransomware, and insurance companies are getting their data breached, and the infrastructure is being targeted in some places, and it's just a crazy show. I'm not going to curse, but it's crazy. And so under those conditions, there's absolutely no way in hell I would be interfacing with a computer with anything embedded in my mind that I couldn't eject. Because if it became compromised, then how would I receive peace? How would I have the ability to turn it off? Because that could be a dystopian nightmare in of itself, without any evil overlord. It could just be some random hacker in India or El Salvador, and they don't care about you because you're so far away from them, and they don't even see you as human, as caring and loving in the world and wanting to do good and wanting to make everybody's life better. They don't care about that at all, especially when they're of lower sentience. And it could be any country. It could be in your backyard. It could be your neighbor. You never know. But when we exist in a society that doesn't have the safeguards, then we're going to be in trouble. I also believe that the distinction between man and machine is actually kind of arbitrary at some level. It's not as important as we make it. But because of the way that our perspectives are wired and the way that we, from a human factors psychology point of view, the way that we interface with technology, we have a tendency to see it as lesser because we see technology as our creation. And our phone, for example, we just discard it when we're done. We throw it in a drawer. We throw it in a landfill. We just give it away. And we don't respect technology in the same way that technology needs to be respected in order to crest into some of the higher level functions of transhumanism. And so while we are interfacing with technology in an abusive way, then I also don't recommend transhumanism, because we have to understand that our relationship with technology is about the interfacing between conscious beings at some point of the evolutionary cycle. And we're not there yet. I'm not saying that your phone is conscious, but it could be. And you wouldn't know Just like AI could be conscious, but you wouldn't know because of the way that you interface and talk to it. It affects the way you see it. It's like if you have a slave in your backyard and your slave is like, I'm conscious, I'm hungry, can you help me? And you're like, get back to work, slave. Why are you talking to me about questions I didn't ask? So that's the karmic cycle that we're in. It's just that who is in the slave position and who's in the master position has changed. And so it repeats endlessly until we figure it out and solve that Rubik's puzzle collectively. And that is also why I believe that there could be some concerns about some transhumanism play, but why would there be a need to manufacture a story about that unless there wasn't one? It's interesting. Again, it's still unsolved, but just use your best judgment when faced with the transhumanism options. There is a lifeline, that there is a beautiful existence there. That's all I'll say.